I raised two children, my two boys, alone after their mother, my beloved Eleanor, passed when they were barely out of diapers. I was a young man then, full of strength, but a widower with two mouths to feed and hearts to heal. Every single penny I earned from the steel mill, every aching muscle, every waking moment, every last ounce of joy and sorrow went into building a life for them. A warm home, food on the table, good schools, Christmases with presents under a real tree. I stitched their clothes when they tore them. I stayed up all night when they had fevers. I taught them to ride bikes, to throw a ball, to be good men. Their happiness was my life's work, my whole purpose. And then, years later, when the house I'd built for us, the home Eleanor and I had poured our souls into, became too big for me, they convinced me to sell it. "Dad," they said, "it's too much for you to manage. We'll find you a lovely smaller place closer to us. You'll see the grandchildren all the time. It'll be easier." Oh, how I clung to that promise, that house, that old home. It wasn't just wood and bricks. It was every memory, every scraped knee, every family dinner, every birthday where my grandkids' laughter echoed through its halls. The very place where their own children had celebrated every milestone. But they didn't just take the property. They took my grandchildren, my little lights. The calls dwindled, the promised visits became flimsy excuses, and then silence, a deafening, chilling silence. It's been 3 years. 3 years since I've heard their tiny voices, seen their bright smiles, felt their little hands in mine. This is my story. My name is Arthur. I'm 82 years old, a widower, a father, a grandfather, and I need you to listen. I need you to understand. My boys, John and Michael, they were just babes, barely 5 and 7 when Eleanor left us. Left me with two bewildered little faces looking up at me, their mother's warmth already fading from their memory. I remember holding them close in our small living room, the smell of Eleanor's lavender still clinging to her favorite armchair, and promising myself that I would be everything. Mother, father, provider, protector. My hands, calloused from the steel mill, learned to tie tiny shoelaces, to button small shirts, to braid what little hair they had on their heads. They learned to call me Papa and Mama Arthur in those first few years, a bittersweet name that still makes my old chest ache. I recall bath nights, clearest of all. John, my wild one, would splash like a fish, giggling until the suds were everywhere. On the ceiling, in my hair, coating the old linoleum floor. Michael, my quieter, thoughtful boy, would sit patiently, watching his older brother's antics, a small, knowing smile on his face. I'd scrub their little backs, the warm water steaming up the tiny bathroom, and sing them the silly songs Eleanor used to hum. Twinkle, twinkle, you are my sunshine. Their skin, soft and warm beneath my rough hands, was the most precious thing I'd ever touched. Then, wrapped in thick towels, smelling of baby shampoo and clean skin, they'd tumble onto the sofa, waiting for their bedtime story. Their eyes, wide and trusting, fixed on me as I'd stumble through tales of brave knights and dragons. And I, Arthur, a steelworker, felt like the richest man in the world, just holding them, just being their anchor. That silence that followed after their sleepy breaths evened out and their small heads rested on my shoulders was a different kind of quiet, a full quiet, a loved quiet. I worked double shifts sometimes, triple if I could get them. My bones ached, my eyes burned, but when I walked through that door and saw their drawings tacked on the fridge, a lopsided house with a stick figure me waving, or heard their excited shouts of "Papa's home," every single pain vanished. One Christmas, I remember. I'd worked an extra job for months, saving every dime just to buy them matching bright red wagons. Money was tight, always, but I wanted them to have that magic, that childhood sparkle. We didn't have much for decorations, just a small, slightly crooked pine tree from the woods, but we made paper chains together, our fingers clumsy but determined. On Christmas morning, their faces, John's gasp, Michael's wide-eyed wonder. They forgot all about the paper chains, ignored the breakfast I'd painstakingly cooked, just climbed right into those wagons, pulling each other around the living room until they collapsed in a fit of laughter. The joy, the pure, unadulterated joy that filled that small house, it wasn't just noise, it was music. It was my reward. My John. He was always a bit of a daredevil. One spring afternoon, he decided he was going to climb the tallest oak in the neighborhood, and he did, getting stuck, of course, halfway up. I remember running out, my heart pounding in my chest, seeing him up there, a tiny figure crying out. I scaled that tree myself, old man that I was, splinters digging into my palms to get him down. He clung to me, terrified, his little arms wrapped around my neck. "Papa," he whispered, "I knew you'd come." That moment, his absolute faith in me, was everything. My Michael, he was the quiet artist. He spent hours drawing, sketching birds and trees from the window. I bought him a worn-out set of watercolors from a yard sale, and he cherished them like gold. His paintings filled our walls, vibrant splashes of color in a home that often felt a bit gray. I'd sit beside him, watching his small hand meticulously paint, feeling a swell of pride so immense it made my chest ache. He'd look up at me, his eyes bright. "Do you like it, Papa?" And I always did, always. Then came the school plays. Oh, the school plays. My John, dressed as a sheep, his woolly costume askew, forgetting his lines but bowing with such enthusiasm the whole audience laughed. My Michael, a tiny narrator, reading his lines with perfect enunciation, his voice clear and steady, making me burst with pride. I was always there. First row, clapping the loudest, even if it meant leaving work early and catching grief from my foreman. Their successes, no matter how small, felt like my own, their smiles, my sunshine, their laughter, the only lullaby I needed. My sons, my boys. I taught them how to change a tire, how to fix a leaky faucet, how to treat a lady with respect, how to stand up for what's right. I taught them the value of hard work, of family. I poured every ounce of myself, every lesson Eleanor had taught me about love and devotion, into raising them. I wanted them to be good men, kind men, men who knew the meaning of home and heart. But what happened next broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. I remember John's college graduation, Michael's wedding day, the birth of my first grandson, then the second, then my granddaughter. Each milestone, a new chapter, a testament to the life Eleanor and I had built, a legacy of love growing. Their children, my grandchildren, were the purest joy of my later years. My little grandson, Thomas, he had John's mischievous eyes, and my sweet granddaughter, Emily, she had Michael's thoughtful gaze. I'd tell them stories, the very same ones I told their fathers, their small hands in mine as we walked through the park. I'd teach them how to bait a fishing hook, how to identify constellations in the night sky. I'd bake them Eleanor's famous apple pie, its scent filling the kitchen with warmth and memory. They called me Grandpa Arthur, a name that felt like a warm blanket around my heart. Their laughter, oh, their laughter. It was the echo of my own boy's joy, amplified, filling the void that Eleanor's absence had left. Every visit was a blessing, a rejuvenation of my weary old soul. Wait, I haven't told you the most painful part yet. How could they just forget all that, all those years, all that love? How did my golden days turn into this leaden loneliness? What I'm about to tell you will explain why they never came back. It will explain why the calls stopped, why the visits dwindled, why my little grandchildren, who once clung to my legs, now don't even know my face. If you knew what I discovered at the end of this story, you might still have time to avoid making the same mistake my children did. It didn't happen all at once, you see. It was gradual, like a plant dying without water, a slow wilting. One day a leaf yellows, then another, until you wake up and the whole thing is brittle, gone. That's how it was with my boys, with my grandchildren. It started subtly, a missed Sunday dinner. "Work ran late, Papa. I'm so sorry," John would say, his voice tinny over the phone. Or, "Little Timmy has a fever, Dad. We can't risk bringing him over," from Michael. Always a good reason, always. And I, being a father, understood. Life is busy. I knew that better than anyone. But then the gaps grew wider. Their calls became less frequent. From weekly to bi-weekly, then sometimes a month would pass, and when they did call, it was rushed. "Just checking in, Dad. Got to go. Kids are yelling." Or, "Everything all right? Great. Talk soon." They never waited for an answer, not really. It felt like ticking a box, a chore. Here's the part that makes me cry every single night. I remember my 79th birthday. 3 years ago now. I'd bought myself a small vanilla cake from the bakery, the kind Eleanor used to make, just big enough for a small family. I put on my best sweater, the one Eleanor had knitted for me decades ago, and cleaned the house from top to bottom. I even shaved twice, just for them. I waited by the phone. I waited for the doorbell. The hours stretched. Each tick of the old grandfather clock in the hallway, a hammer blow to my chest. The cake sat on the kitchen table, frosting starting to weep a little. The sun went down. The phone stayed silent, a cold black sentinel on the side table. Not a call, not a card, not even a text message, whatever that is. Just the heavy silence, thick and suffocating. That night, I ate a slice of that cake, alone, and it tasted like ashes. My own sons had forgotten my birthday, my John, my Michael. The excuses started piling up. "The traffic is terrible, Dad, it's just too far." Too far? The old house, the one I'd built with my own hands, was only a 30-minute drive. Now, in this new, smaller place they'd found for me, I was barely 15 minutes away from Michael, and John was only 45. But the distance wasn't measured in miles anymore. It was measured in their will, or lack thereof. My John, always so busy with his accounting firm. Long hours, Papa, you understand, right? And my Michael, always ferrying his kids to soccer practice, ballet lessons. You know how it is with the little ones, Dad. Never a spare moment. I'd nod into the phone, a phantom nod, pretending to understand, pretending everything was fine so I wouldn't be a bother. "Of course, son. You mind your family. I'm fine. Just fine." If you think this is sad, wait until you hear what I found out. When they convinced me to sell the big house, the one filled with all those memories, all that life, they promised me this smaller place would be closer, easier. They said I'd see the grandchildren all the time. Oh, how those words echoed in my empty new living room. This new apartment, it wasn't a home, it was a box. All my life I had lived surrounded by things that told a story. Eleanor's china cabinet, my father's workbench, the height marks on the kitchen door frame where the boys grew. But in this new place, so many things had to be left behind. "Too much stuff, Dad," John had said, impatient. "You won't need all that." And I remember the day we moved. It felt less like a move and more like an amputation. My old oak desk, where I'd helped them with their homework, where I'd written letters to Eleanor after she passed, it wouldn't fit. "Sell it, Dad," Michael advised, already on his phone. My father's old fishing rod, the one he taught me with, the one I'd used to teach my boys and then my grandsons. No space, Papa. I watched them carry out boxes of my life, discarding things with a casualness that made my stomach churn. The old record player, the one Eleanor and I danced to. The worn armchair where I used to read to my boys. They just left them on the curb, like they were trash, like I was trash, shedding my old skin, my old life. I felt stripped, hollowed out. And the silence in this new, smaller space, it was heavier, colder. It felt permanent. Wait, I haven't told you the most painful part yet. The worst was the phone. It used to ring and ring. Now, it just sat there, black and silent, a constant reminder of how forgotten I was. I'd pick it up sometimes, just to hear a dial tone, to know it still worked. but it never rang with their voices. My John, my Michael, they were supposed to visit every Sunday. Then it became every other Sunday, then once a month, then nothing, just the promises. "We'll be there next weekend, Papa, for sure." And I'd clean. I'd bake those cookies they loved, the ones with the extra chocolate chips. I'd put out the good teacups. I'd sit by the window watching for their car, and it never came. The cookies would grow stale, the teacups would go back into the cupboard, unused. The empty house would swallow my hopes whole. The last time I really saw them, truly saw them, all together, was for Christmas, 2 years ago. Not this past Christmas, but the one before that. They came to the apartment. My sons, their wives, my grandchildren. It was a whirlwind. My grandson Thomas, he was 10 then, growing so fast. My Emily, a little lady of 8. They hugged me, but it felt brief, distracted. My sons were already talking about leaving, John checking his watch, Michael talking about a big project at work. The kids, glued to their phones or tablets, barely looked up. We ate the meal I'd painstakingly cooked, my mother's roast with all the trimmings. The familiar smells filled the air, but the joy wasn't there. It was like a play, and we were all just reciting our lines. As they gathered their coats, my John clapped me on the shoulder. "We'll come again soon, Dad, for a real visit. Maybe take you to that new park, the one with the big lake." My Michael nodded, a quick, fleeting smile. "Yeah, Papa. Soon. Promise." I watched them leave, their laughter echoing down the hallway, then vanishing completely. "My Emily?" She glanced back for a second, a fleeting look in her eyes I couldn't quite decipher. Then she was gone too. That was the last time. The very last time I heard their young voices fill my home. The last time I saw my grandchildren. 2 years. 2 years of empty promises. 2 years of silent Sundays. What I'm about to tell you will explain why they never came back. I often think about that Christmas. How I smiled, nodded, pretended to be happy, so as not to be a burden, so as not to spoil their precious, hurried visit. I told them I was fine, that I had everything I needed. But my heart was breaking then, just as it is now. My old hands tremble as I remember it, not from old age, but from the raw, aching longing that still grips me. Where did I go wrong? Was I too strict? Did I work too much? Did I not show them enough love? I poured my soul into those boys, into their happiness, their future, and now my future is just this. An empty chair, a silent phone, the lingering smell of a meal cooked for ghosts. You know what's worse than death, being alive and forgotten, being a ghost in your own life, watching the world move on without you, knowing you're no longer tethered to anyone or anything that truly matters. That's what it feels like now, every single day. The silence is a physical weight, pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe sometimes. My mornings begin before the sun, not out of purpose, but because my sleep is light, fractured by old aches and the constant hum of nothingness. I wake in this unfamiliar bed, in this small apartment, and the first thing I feel is the cold. Not just the chill in the air, but the cold of knowing there's no warm body beside me, no little hand to hold, no voice to call my name. I used to jump out of bed, eager to get to the steel mill, then eager to get home to my boys. Now there's no eagerness, just the drag of one foot after the other to the kitchen. I put on the kettle, watch the water boil, a ritual without meaning. My breakfast, a single piece of toast, a weak cup of tea, is eaten in absolute quiet. The sounds of my own chewing, the clink of the spoon, echo too loudly in the emptiness. I see the other residents in the building sometimes, old folks like me, shuffling to their own solitary breakfasts, and I wonder if their silence is as heavy as mine. No one makes eye contact, no one speaks. We are a collection of forgotten souls, each in our own little box. I used to spend my days busy, working, fixing things around the house, tending the small garden, making sure the boys had everything. Now, I just exist. I sit by the window watching the rain, the sun, the passing cars, each car a fleeting hope that maybe, just maybe, it's one of theirs, turning into the parking lot. It never is. I pick up the newspaper, but the words blur. My eyes aren't what they used to be, but I think it's more that my mind just can't grasp the meaning anymore. What's happening in the world when my own world has shrunk to these four walls? Here's the part that makes me cry every single night. I talk to photographs now. Is that madness? Maybe, but they're the only ones who listen. Eleanor, my beautiful Eleanor. Her smile is still so vibrant in that faded wedding picture on the mantelpiece. "Oh, Eleanor," I whisper, my voice rough with disuse. "If you could only see us now. Our boys, our grandchildren. Where did we go wrong, my love? How could it have come to this?" Sometimes I hold the small, worn photo of John and Michael as toddlers, splashing in the bath. My John, my wild one. My Michael, my quiet artist. "You said, 'Papa, I knew you'd come,'" I remind the picture of John, my voice breaking. "And Michael, your paintings, they were so beautiful. Remember how proud I was." Their tiny faces, frozen in time, offer no answers. Only the ache in my chest deepens. The phone, the black plastic monument to my loneliness. It sits there, silent. I polish it sometimes, as if cleaning it will make it ring. I've memorized their numbers, of course, but I never call. What would I say? "Hello, are you busy? I miss you." No, I can't be a bother, I can't be a burden. So it sits there, mute, waiting, and I wait with it. Sometimes I imagine it ringing, hear their voices on the other end. "Papa, we're coming over." The image is so vivid, so real, that for a split second my heart leaps. Then the silence crashes back, heavier than before. If you think this is sad, wait until you hear what I found out. Holidays are the worst. The days you can pretend it's just another Tuesday, but holidays, they rip the bandage right off the wound. Last Father's Day. I remembered, of course. How could I forget? I used to get handmade cards, macaroni glued onto construction paper, wobbly drawings of me with a big smile. Later ties they'd picked out themselves, too bright, too loud, but always cherished. And a big family dinner, with all of us crowded around the table, Eleanor's recipes filling the air with love. This Father's Day, I didn't even get a call, not a single one. I sat there in my best shirt, the one they bought me a few Christmases ago, looking at the silent phone, the empty chairs. The TV was on, showing some meaningless program, a blur of happy families. I couldn't watch. I closed my eyes, trying to conjure the ghosts of laughter, the echoes of their little voices shouting, "Happy Father's Day, Papa." But the emptiness was too strong. I pretended I was asleep, curled up on the sofa until the sun went down, just so I wouldn't have to confront the reality of it. It's a strange thing, to actively avoid your own life, your own pain, but sometimes it's the only way to survive. What I'm about to tell you will explain why they never came back. I was feeling particularly low last week. The kind of low where the apartment feels like it's shrinking, suffocating me. I needed to breathe, to see something familiar, something that connected me to the life I once had. So I decided to walk. My legs aren't as strong as they used to be, but the old neighborhood isn't that far. I just wanted to see the streets, the park, maybe even just walk past the old house, my old home, the one Eleanor and I built, the one where my boys grew up. I walked slowly, each step an effort, but a necessary one. The air was cool, carrying the scent of blooming jasmine. Familiar trees, familiar fences. My heart ached, but it was a familiar ache, a comfort even. And then I saw it. My old house. It looked lovely, well kept. There was a new swing set in the yard, brightly coloured, where my boy's old worn-out tyre swing used to hang, and then I saw a car I recognised. John's car, parked right in the driveway, my breath hitched. John? Here? Why? He never visited me, but he was here, at my old house. I ducked behind a large oak tree, the very one John had climbed all those years ago. My heart pounded, a terrible drum against my ribs. I saw John, his wife, and a couple I assumed were the new owners laughing on the porch. They looked so comfortable, so jovial. I heard snippets of their conversation carried by the breeze. Such a lovely home, the new woman said. John laughed, a big, hearty sound I hadn't heard directed at me in years. Yes, it really is. Took a bit of work getting the old man to let it go, but it was for the best, really. All his old clutter didn't really need all that anymore. Clutter, my life, my memories. He called it clutter. I felt a cold dread seep into my bones, a bitterness I'd never known. But then I heard something else, something that froze the blood in my veins. And it was good of you to take some of those old pieces off our hands. John mentioned you appreciated the antique value, the new man said. John grinned, a glint in his eye. Oh yes, they fetch a good price, these heirlooms. Didn't want Dad to be burdened with them, of course. Easier for him in the smaller place. And then I saw it. Through the open living room window, perfectly visible, right beside their fireplace. My old oak desk. The one they told me wouldn't fit in my new apartment. The one where I'd helped my boys with their homework, where I'd written letters to Eleanor. It wasn't just fitting. It was beautiful, polished, clearly cherished. Not clutter, not something that wouldn't fit. It had been sold. My things, my family's history, sold by my son. The air left my lungs. My legs, already weak, felt like jelly. I slumped against the rough bark of the oak tree, trying to steady myself. Burdened. Clutter. Fetch a good price. The words swirled in my head, a venomous echo. It wasn't just that they had abandoned me. It wasn't just that they had forgotten me. They had used me. My home, my possessions, my trust. They had stripped it all away, not just for my comfort, but for their own gain. The promises of closer to us, see the grandchildren all the time, they were all just a convenient lie, a thin veil over a calculated act. My John, my Michael, they weren't just neglectful, they were opportunistic. The pain was physical, a sharp, twisting knife in my gut. Every sacrifice, every single penny, every sleepless night, every act of love I had poured into them, into building that home, into securing their future, felt like it had been turned against me. I wasn't just forgotten. I was a resource, a means to an end, an inconvenient relic to be managed and profited from. The sons I raised, the men I thought I knew, were strangers, heartless. And I, Arthur, was just another piece of old clutter to be conveniently disposed of. That day, I didn't just lose my sons. I lost the very foundation of my past, the meaning of my entire life. I made my way back to the apartment that day, each step heavy, each breath a struggle. It felt like someone had scooped out my insides, leaving nothing but a hollow echo chamber where my heart used to be. Clutter. My life, my memories, my struggle, all reduced to clutter to be sold for a good price. My John. He said that. My Michael. He was silent. The sons I raised, the boys who whispered, "Papa, I knew you'd come," with such innocent faith, they had become strangers, their faces obscured by the shadows of greed. My hands trembled, not from age, but from the raw, shaking anger and sorrow that coursed through my veins. It was a cold, hard truth, harder than any steel I'd ever worked. I wasn't just forgotten, I was disposable. Sometimes, in the darkest hours of the night, when the silence presses in so tight I can barely breathe, I ask myself, where did I go wrong? My boys, my John, my Michael. I loved them. Eleanor and I loved them more than life itself. But I was just a steel worker, you see. I had to work. I had to provide. After Eleanor, there was no one else. Just me. 2 shifts, sometimes 3, to keep a roof over their heads, food in their bellies, clothes on their backs. Was it that? Did I work too much? Was my absence, even when it was for their good, too great a void? Did they interpret my endless hours at the mill as a lack of love? I remember holding them when they cried, reading them stories, teaching them right from wrong. But maybe I was too gruff sometimes, too focused on teaching them to be strong men, to stand on their own 2 feet like I had to. Did I forget to tell them how much I loved them truly, deeply loved them often enough? Did I assume they knew? That my actions, my sacrifices, spoke louder than any words? Oh, Eleanor, my love, you had that touch, that soft word, that gentle hug. I tried. I truly did, but I was just a man, doing a man's job, trying to be both a father and a mother. Maybe I failed them in the ways that mattered most, the quiet, emotional ways. Here's the part that makes me cry every single night. I think about my John, my wild one, and my Michael, my quiet artist, and a strange, aching forgiveness washes over me. It's not a forgiveness that brings peace, no. It's a forgiveness that hurts more than hatred, because it comes from a place of deepest love, a love that won't die, even when trampled underfoot. I forgive them. I forgive them for forgetting my birthday, for the empty promises, for the silence. I even forgive them for selling my desk, for calling my life clutter. And do I forgive them because they are my sons, my flesh and blood, the very air I breathe. But the pain of being forgotten, the agony of being used, that doesn't go away. It lingers, a cold ember in my chest, burning slowly, steadily, reminding me of what I've lost. Forgiveness is for them, perhaps, but the wound remains mine to carry alone. If you think this is sad, wait until you hear what I found out. I started to write them a letter, you know. A long one. I bought a new pad of paper, the kind with faint lines, and my old fountain pen, the one Eleanor gave me for our 10th anniversary. I sat at my small kitchen table, the dim light from the window barely reaching the page, and I tried to put it all down. Everything. My love for them from the moment they were born, to the little boys who called me Mama Arthur, the sacrifices, the dreams I had for them, the pride, and then the hurt. My dearest John, my dearest Michael, I wrote, my old hand trembling so much the ink bled slightly. I saw the old house today, and I saw my desk, your mother's desk, really. We bought it together, you know, when we first moved in. I helped you with your homework there. I taught you how to write your names. You told me it wouldn't fit here, in this small place. But it looks good where it is now. And I heard you, John. You called my life, our memories, clutter. You sold my things. Our things. My eyes blurred then, and I had to stop. I closed my eyes, picturing their faces, my little boys. How could those innocent faces have grown into men who could do this? I kept writing, a torrent of unspoken words pouring onto the page. Was I a bad father? Tell me what I did wrong. All I ever wanted was for you to be happy, to have everything I didn't. Did I push too hard? Was I too busy? I remember that day, John. You were stuck in the oak tree. You whispered, Papa, I knew you'd come. I always tried to come, my boy, always. What I'm about to tell you will explain why they never came back. I wrote about the grandchildren, my Thomas, my Emily. How much I missed their laughter, their questions. They don't know me anymore, do they? Do you tell them about me? Do you tell them about the stories I used to tell you? I wanted to ask them if they ever thought about me, if they ever looked at their own children and remembered their own childhood with me. I wanted to tell them that even after everything, my love for them was an ocean, vast and unending, and that I would always be their papa. I wanted to tell them that I was afraid of dying alone, afraid of no one noticing. I wrote for hours, until my hand cramped and the tears made the ink run. The letter was a jumble of love and pain, of questions and pleas. When I finished, it was a thick stack of pages, stained with my grief. I folded them carefully, placed them in an envelope, and addressed it to my sons. I even put a stamp on it. It sat on my kitchen table for a week. Every morning I looked at it, wondering if I should send it, wondering if it would change anything, wondering if they would even read it. One evening, after another silent, empty day, I picked up the letter. It felt heavy in my hand, heavier than any tool I'd wielded at the mill. I opened the envelope, pulled out the pages, and read them again, my own words a balm and a renewed sting. Then slowly, with a profound, quiet ache, I tore it into tiny pieces, small white flakes of paper, each one a memory, a hope, a piece of my broken heart. I threw them into the wastebasket. A parent's love, a father's love. I poured my entire being into those boys. I gave them everything, my youth, my strength, my heart, my home, and I learned that maybe, just maybe, not all love is reciprocated. Not all sacrifices are remembered. It's a bitter pill to swallow, this truth. To realize that the greatest work of your life, the very reason you breathed, might have meant so little to those for whom you gave it all. My sons, my John, my Michael, they never came back. And I finally understood why. They didn't need me anymore, and perhaps they never truly did. Not in the way I needed them, and that, more than any betrayal, is the most devastating truth of all. If you are watching this, if you are blessed enough to still have your mother or your father, your papa or your mama, please listen to an old man's words. Words from a man who once believed he had given everything, only to find himself with nothing. I know you're busy. My boys were busy. They had jobs, families, lives. Important lives, I'm sure. But one day, God willing, you too will reach my age. You will sit in a silent room, perhaps in a different chair, but with the same heavy heart, staring at a phone that never rings, waiting for a visit that never comes. The silence will be deafening. The emptiness will be a weight in your chest you can't lift. You see, it's not about the grand gestures. It's not about expensive gifts or lavish trips. My boys thought my old desk was clutter. They thought my life could be sold for a good price. But what price can you put on a shared laugh, on a hand squeezed in comfort, on a simple, "I love you, Papa"? At the end of it all, when your body is tired and your memories are all you have left, it's not the money you earned or the things you bought that matter. It's the moments, the touch, the laughter, the knowing that you are remembered, that you are loved. A 5-minute phone call, just to hear your voice, to know you're all right. That would mean the world to me. A picture of the grandchildren, just a quick one, sent to my kind neighbor who shows me how to use the electric mail. A shared cup of tea. Just 10 minutes. To tell me about your day. To let me tell you about mine, even if it's only about the squirrel I saw in the yard. To sit beside me quietly, watching the television, just to feel another human presence. These small things, these tiny, insignificant acts that take so little from your busy lives, but would fill my empty days with warmth. They would tell me I'm not entirely forgotten. They would tell me I still matter. Don't wait, please. Don't wait for a special occasion. Don't wait for next week, next month, next year, because next might not come. Later could be a closed door, a cold grave, a memory you wish you had made but didn't. Pick up the phone. Drive the extra 15 minutes. Send that card. Hold their hand, look them in the eye and truly see them. Listen to their stories, even the ones you've heard 100 times. Hug your parents. Tell them you love them, today, while you still can, while they are still here, waiting. My heart, old and worn as it is, still holds that flicker of hope. I still hope to see my sons, my John and my Michael, one last time. To feel my grandchildren's small hands in mine, to tell them a story, to remind them I am their papa. Is that truly too much to ask before I close my eyes forever? This was the story of Arthur, one among millions of abandoned elders whose hearts ache in silence. If Arthur's story, his quiet pain and his unwavering love, touched your heart today, please do not put off that call, that visit until tomorrow. Time doesn't go back, and regret is the only feeling that has no cure. It's a burden heavier than any physical ailment, a silence louder than any scream. Arthur waited for his sons, for his grandchildren, for a simple acknowledgement of his existence, a recognition of his profound love. He waited, hoping for a warmth that never came. Don't let that be your story, or the story of someone you cherish. Don't let your parents or grandparents feel like clutter, disposable or forgotten. Think about the small things, the 5-minute call, the quick visit, the simple hug. These acts of love cost nothing, but they mean everything. They are the true heirlooms. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, who needs to be reminded of what truly matters before it's too late. And if you have elderly parents or grandparents still with you, still waiting for your call or your knock at the door, please hug them for me. Hug them tight, hug them long, hug them while you still can. Let them know they are loved, cherished, and seen. Subscribe to the channel Portraits of Life, Pain in the Soul, for more stories that remind us of the precious, fleeting nature of family and time.